Welcome folks. In the last video I was showing you the throttle body and how to assemble a few of the parts on it to make things a little bit easier to understand and follow along. So in this video here we're going to be doing the float bowl preparation and then mount it on the top of the throttle body with its gasket. So we'll just go through a few things while we're at it. Might as well tell you them now to save you some headaches later. I'm just going to bring this out just for a support mechanism to display what I've got to show you. You got to start writing things down. My experience is if you try to remember everything you've done to these things, it's almost an impossibility because there's just so many things you might be doing over the years or adjustments, what have you. And what happens is you might forget exactly what you did. So always write down and date. It's very important to put the date, maybe even the day on what you're doing here. So before you start putting like primary jets into the float bowl and things like that, I'll just put these here to give you a heads up, so to speak, on what you should be doing. At least I've learned this as I went along. Wasn't doing too bad. Finally realized I should be making some notes. All you need is a notebook. Keep one specifically for your Thermoquad. That way you can always reference back to it. Time, date, exactly what you've done, any adjustments. It doesn't matter, parts that you've replaced or done. Keep a good reference in writing, your own handwriting. Hopefully you can read your own handwriting. That's a good thing to start with. So anyway, what you got in front of you here is the primary metering jet and the primary metering rod that goes into that primary jet, and the secondary jet, which is off of the air horn. And I was telling you to keep these in place hand tight until you're ready to do the final tightening. The only time you want these off of those air bleed tubes is when you're actually working on the air bleed tube area. Otherwise, if you bend those, you can kiss that top casting or air horn goodbye, because I don't think you're going to find a replacement unless you buy a whole top for your carburetor. So always keep these in place like I mentioned before. Now the reason I've got these out here is not just to show you what they are, but rather to record the numbers that are on them. We'll start with the primary metering jet. You might have to get magnifying glass and might have to sand them lightly with some, they could be oxidized or whatever. If you get some 600 grit or even finer and just give them a light rub on top of the metering jet, there will be a number that comes up if you don't already see it. It's usually a 4-digit number, and you record that number. I believe the last 3 digits are the actual size in thousandths of an inch of the orifice opening. That's the hole that's inside that metering jet. And while we're doing the primary side, on the metering rod, it's only a code that's on there. It's no real reference to any size at all. You have to look this up. There are several sites on the internet and you can look these numbers up for the metering rods. And actually with each carburetor application, there's a certain size of primary jet, secondary jet, and metering rod that goes with that particular model of carburetor as far as the Thermoquads are concerned. So onto this metering rod here, there's a number, and it's usually stamped right above where the shoulder, where it comes to the largest diameter here. There's usually a 4-digit number in there, and it's a code. You have to look it up to find out what these the steps are, and the taper for the mid-range. So it'll give you the 3 different sizes on here. The power step being the smallest diameter on the end, and then the mid-range step when you're just doing your regular driving, and then when you're really cruising lean, hardly any gas, pedal down, it'll be into this larger diameter here. Okay, this is actual body part. This doesn't go into the jet, this larger diameter here. This is the part that's, you can consider it the backbone, if you will. It doesn't do any metering at all. Okay, so record that number, those 4-digit, the 4-digit number that you find on the primary jet, and there's also a 4-digit number on the secondary jet. You have to look closely because sometimes they're not stamped in very deep, so just shine them up a little bit with some really fine emery so you don't destroy the numbers. And usually the last of the, well, there's 4 digits usually on the secondary metering jet. The last 3 will tell you in thousandths of an inch what the orifice opening is in the secondary jet. Okay, so I'll be doing another video about how to correct your jetting and whatnot to accommodate today's fuels, because they do run a lot leaner than the old stuff that these were originally calibrated for. So on to the little assembly now that I've got that out of the way. Make sure you write everything down. I'm going to put this back onto the air horn and protect that secondary air metering tube there. And we can put this out of the way, metering rod off to the side in a safe place, and that'll go into the float bowl in a minute. So we'll get our float bowl out now. I'm just going to put it on an angle here to make it easier for me to install the primary metering jets, because my arm has to come in from this side. Remember the old bamboo skewer trick? Well, we're going to use it again today. If you haven't seen those videos before, it's just basically get the primary metering jet, get a bamboo skewer. Dollar store, you get like 50 or something for $1 or whatever it is, dollar. Just run that in there till it's snug. Fastest and easiest way to get these in there, and you don't cross thread. Cross threading, you'll find sometimes things don't start, like this one right here. Go backwards on it, counterclockwise a bit, and you usually hear a bit of a click. And it could apply to any nut that you're trying to put on a bolt, or for that matter a bolt going into a threaded hole. If you go backwards this way first, you'll feel a click, or you'll hear a click depending on what it is. And don't force this. Never force a start of a thread. You can cross, what they call cross threading, you'll ruin the threads. So that's down. Just hand tight with the bamboo skewer. And this is just to get them in place and in preparation to tighten them down with a screwdriver. And it's really quick. Really easy to get them in and out of the float bowl that way. So on comes, you want a nice big screwdriver to go across both slots of the primary metering jet. Now remember, it's just a tiny little thread, and it's brass going into brass basically, so just snug them up. You don't have to go crazy on it. You start breaking that down there and it's going to be expensive damage that you do, so just a nice little snugging. When you feel it stop, that's pretty much it. So that's it for actually screwing anything or bolting anything onto this part of the float bowl. Okay, so now the actual assembly part. We'll bring the prepared throttle body in, like in the previous video to this one, the one that was just made before it. You've got, make sure you've got your metering rod, tree, lever, and pin, and it's installed correctly. There's two ways to put this gasket on. You can either put it on the float bowl itself. There's some little pins here that locate the gasket. Make sure you've got the right gasket. Use your old gasket and hold the new gasket up. Make sure all the openings and holes are in the same place. You don't want to be blocking off or missing gasket material where it's required. In the kits they usually put several gaskets to cover different models, so put them side by side, your old one. Hopefully it's the proper one that was in there from a guy rebuilding it before, but make sure that the proper openings and sizes all match up. Okay, you can either put it on here like this and just push it down and hold it front and rear and then put it onto the throttle body. Or I'll show you the other way too. If you're careful enough, you can do it that way. This is a used gasket, so I'm just going to put it back where it was before. So it's basically line up all the holes, square it all up. It will move on you, so you got to be careful in this respect. Is make sure everything's all in alignment, and then when you put the float bowl down onto it, you have to go perfectly straight down and where the actual openings all line up, and very gently and slowly, and then just give it a bit of a wiggle. This one went right in there. Now what you want to do is check around the outside where the gasket is between the throttle body and the bottom of the float bowl. Make sure it hasn't shifted. Don't force it down. This should go down relatively easy. And once you got it down so it's in its proper place, like I say, give it a bit of a wiggle and make sure there's no teeter-totter action going on when you push on different parts of it. It's got to sit there nice and flat. Make sure that the lift-up lever for the primary metering tree hasn't jumped out on you. It should all sit flat. Okay, so I'll just lift this up just to show you. So you want to do is look all the way around and make sure that the gasket is sticking out just fairly equally all the way around, depending on the cut of the gasket. But you will notice to make sure that this is all even. There's no air gap in there at all. It's got to be sitting down flush. Make sure that you don't. Once you get it that far, don't be turning the carburetor upside down or anything, because if this starts to jump off, then you can get things like that. The pin in the primary metering rod tree actuating lever jumping out of there. So get it into this position here and leave it there. Don't tilt it upside down unless you can actually walk around this thing or spin it around and look at, like I told you about the gasket fitting in there, make sure it's down flush. Another very important thing is not to forget there's the baffle plate. Goes in the secondary bores there. Okay, so don't forget to put that back in before you put the air horn or top casting back in. So all you have to do is remember that this opening here goes down first, and there's two little tabs on the outside here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. The little stops, and they fit into some notches in this the float bowl here. So all you do is you get down here, there's another slot in right in here. You match the three of them up and don't force it. And sometimes these can be a bit bent, so make sure they're perfectly straight. You can put a straight edge on them and just very gently hand bend them till they're straight. Okay, you shouldn't have to force this in. It should just drop in like that. Excuse me. And I'll just show you here, like you probably won't have to do this, but I'm doing it for the video's sake and so you can see. Make sure that that metal baffle plate is flush on all three steps here. You don't want it sticking up and not going into its notch, so make sure it's flat down there. You can feel that with your finger. And while I'm at it, another important aspect of this is for the float bowl's protection and also the way your choke will work. Right here you see there's part of the fast idle cam lever here. It's a big triangular kind of a shape right here and behind the rest of this linkage. Make sure that doesn't rub up against the side of your float bowl. The deal here is if it starts dragging on there, then this oversized fast idle screw for your fast idle setting, where it goes on the fast idle cam, will bind. It's got to be free, like you see here. It's got to be free. You can't have it rubbing up against the side of your float bowl. This one was actually rubbing on here when I got it. So make sure you've got 32nd of an inch clearance in there between the float bowl and this. And make sure that your fast idle cam screw sits right in the middle of the fast idle cam here. Don't bend it too much, just enough so it doesn't rub against the side of the float bowl. Excuse me. So there you oh, here we go with the throat again. So there's all I'm going to do for this video today. It's just to get that float bowl installed with the primary metering jets and the baffle plate and the gasket. Don't forget to write those numbers down. I'll mention it once again, both the primary metering jets and the secondary metering jets have those numbers, and the last three digits in each are the actual orifice size in thousandths of an inch. Those are the size of the jets. And the metering rod's got a code on it that you have to look up to find out what those the steps are. Okay, so there's one more thing on the top of my mind here. What was it now? Excuse me. Oh yeah, this is the second carb I found when I looked up the specifications for the jetting that was in it. The metering rod's numbers matched up, the secondaries jets matched up, but here with the primary jets in here, two carburetors now, it's supposed to be 98 thousandths of an inch. 4098 would be the number on it. In one of the carburetors I found a 95 thousandths jet, or a 4095, and in this one it came out with 4096 or 96 thousandths of an inch jet. So you look up the listing somewhere on the internet, you'll find it, and you'll find that these, a lot of times, I don't know whether maybe the manufacturer told the carburetor company to, okay, we'll lean it out a bit or something on the primary side as a last minute thing without changing specifications in the written sense. So watch your jetting sizes. That's why I say write everything down, and I'll be able to help you out if you can give me those numbers and the carb model. Carb model can be found on the back. It's stamped in the back on this this corner here of the throttle body. Here we go with the throat again. Anyways, that's about it for today, folks. There's some food for thought. And on the next installment of this, I'll be going into the air horn or top casting. And that's when things really get kind of busy. You got float levels to set and whatnot. So review this video as many times as you like. Get it straight and Try not to complicate things. Do it pretty much the way I've done here. You could come up with a better method yourself. If you do, by all means use it. So that's it for today. Take care. Have a nice day, and bye for now.